Welcome back to everybody to the Four Pillar Podcast. We stand for faith, family, fitness, and finance in that order. All four pillars, baby, lead you to a fulfilling life. But so we're actually going to talk about today. The title of the podcast is The Four Pillars of a Balanced Life, and that is faith, family, fitness, and finance. So we thought it would be a good idea to run through what each of the four pillars means and kind of maybe some things that you can do or things to pay attention to that can help you keep a balanced life. Because essentially, I picked those four pillars because I think it is the four kind of foundations of everything that hold things up in your life. And there can be subcategories in those things. Like, for example, family can be your spouse, your kids, your friends. Your social life. Fitness is from the fitness of like what your mental fitness to what you eat, exercising. So I mean, right, each pillar could go a little bit deeper than just per se what it means as well too. But it's an overall kind of anchor to that section of your life to help you stay focused and keep balance. And because you are what you constantly do and you think every single day over and over again. So if one of those things are out of line or what I say crumbling, for an example, well, the example I like to use is when you think about when people make tables, right? So we have a nice Amish fella working on our house right now. He probably makes a bunch of tables, or the Amish make really good tables. And when they make a table, I don't see very many tables with 3 legs or 2 legs. I mean, I'm sure there's probably special circumstances where they do, but I would say 99% of tables are made with 4 legs. They're made with the 4 legs for a reason, because it distributes the weight across the table so it can hold very high loads without collapsing or falling over or tipping over. It stays balanced, it stays stable, and it can support weight. You can probably go lay or sit on your kitchen table and it's not going to move. It's not going to fall over. But see, what happens is when you cut off one of the legs of the table, that table starts becoming unbalanced, unstable, can't support the weight the correct way, and it can cause detriment in per se that table's longevity and life. And I believe the same goes for us when we think about our 4 pillars: faith, family, fitness, and finance being those 4 legs of the table, right? Because one of those legs gets cut off or it's damaged or collapses, and you set weight on the side that pillar is, that table leg is broke, that table is going to fall over or tip over. Especially it gets even worse when you start cutting off, 1 leg, 2 legs, and I don't think a table can even stand up if there's only 1 leg to the table. I guess unless you put that leg in the middle of the table, but then that thing's not going to hold a lot of weight, or it's going to fall over pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that goes really deep, because you think about with our 4 pillars, the faith, family, fitness, and finance, if one of them is lacking or not as strong as the others and something comes up, a heavy load where it's like a family member gets sick, or
a financial
crisis, if all 4 aren't strong, or you really build one up and not the other 3, that load it's gonna crumble in on itself. The table is. Right. So that goes really deep. I like that.
Woe is the rich man that desires health and wellness, but has all the money in the world and wants to pay for health and wellness. Mm-hmm. But woe to him who it will never change unless he adapts and learns and follows the ways of health and wellness.
Did you just make that up?
Or... As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Oh. Okay.
And woe is
did you just come up with that
from memory? Woe is the poor man who has health and wellness and wants riches, but he may pray and wish he has riches and complain about not having riches, but will never adapt that lifestyle because he doesn't want to put the time or the effort, the discipline, or the sacrifice into becoming rich. But then woe is to both men who ultimately, on either side of the game, you can have what you want with the sacrifice, but the alternative is as true as well if you don't actually apply or adapt or learn how to and actually do those things that you want to accomplish.
I like that.
James Allen.
I'm pretty impressed that you just came up with that from memory.
And
I know your laptop's there, but he doesn't have that pulled up or anything.
yeah. Well, and I'm not probably saying that exactly for word as
Well, no,
elegant
but
as he
the
said it, but
idea of
that's
it,
the
yeah.
gist of what he says.
Also, I know we didn't say this. Ori's here, our 9-month-old son. So if you randomly hear things, he just dumped a whole bag of dried strawberries on his lap. So that was fun. But yeah, we do you want to talk about a little bit about why we came up with the 4 pillars when we did? It was I mean, you had always kind of lived by this, but as far as coming up with family pillars, I believe we kind of set that up at that marriage conference several years ago.
Yeah, so we went to a marriage conference roughly.
Oh, it was before Eden. Was it like
Excuse me.
2019?
Yeah, I mean it was it may have been 2018 after it, like I didn't feel like we were even married super long at
Yeah,
that
it could have
point.
been. Yeah,
Yeah,
2018 or 2019.
yeah,
We were either 1 or 2 years.
yeah, and it was by Jeff and Alyssa Bethke, which she has a really good book to Hell with the Hustle that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but yeah, we went to this workshop, and they talked about having a maybe correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but a family mission statement,
Yes, that's what they called it.
like a
Yeah.
family mission statement, a family goal. I'm just going to call it mission statement. I think that's the gist of what he was saying. So I kind of obviously with the help of my wife, but I kind of it made me really think about like having you could call it a chief aim or a purpose or a mission statement for for a family, even for yourself. Even if you don't have a family, you should do this for yourself because I think it can anchor you. But that's how we kind of basically put together. And I heard of there's a lot of books I've read or individuals maybe I followed that were businessmen that kind of had different they'll have like the 5 purposes or the 5 whatever, the 3 this and the 6 this and whatever. And I kind of like, well, I think we can make this pretty simple. And I kind of was like, well, what are the most important things like in your life, right? Like if
Yeah.
you could sum up if you could sum up your whole entire life and the purpose of it into kind of as little ideas as possible
Mhm.
or sections, right? Because if you have like, oh, here's the 27 pillars for your life, like that's
Yeah.
like super, super hard to govern that or remember it or whatever.
Right.
And so I basically narrowed it down. I was thinking one day, and I need to go back and find this journal because I actually wrote it down in a journal in roughly 2018, 2019. Excuse me. Um, and I basically thought, okay, well, there is like, right, God, your essentially your faith or the spirituality of your life, and that. So I was like, that's like first pillar. Okay, well, I think okay, we have faith. That's really important. And then like, what's the other stuff? Well, you have your social life, right? Essentially, like your friendships, your family, um, your relationships with other people, your grandparents, your parents, like all these basically relationships and stuff. And I'm like, well, what's the easy way to sum that up? And that's where I basically thought, okay, well, family, right? Because family could be because friends are technically can be considered as family. So like that's an easy way to be like anchor that memory of like family.
Yeah, I think family is more relationships
It's
than
basically your social outlook, your life,
yeah.
and
Well, it's also I think church family stuff like that. You're because a lot of these go together. Because we sat down the journal you're talking about. We talked about everything that's important to us. So whether it's church tradition, family traditions,
yeah.
all of this stuff. So sorry, you can
Oh yeah,
continue.
no, you're good. Yeah, and then the same thing with like fitness, right? You got to think, well, what's like, right? Well, you need to be healthy, you need to exercise. If you're 100 pounds overweight, you're gonna die, and you can't really do anything. You're not mobile, right? There's a lot of things. The same thing with finance. Finance is important because you have to have sustenance to be able to live on Earth, and I think God even tells us that. But it's just to be wary of not letting money become your master, because you can only serve one master, and God's our master. And but it's still important though to have sustenance and be successful in that area of life as well too. So yeah, we basically just made this giant list of like all these things that are important, and you can fit all those things between faith, family, fitness, and finance. That's kind of
Yep.
like, okay, well, let's make it. I've heard of like I got pillars, like some other guy I listened to had like the 5 pillars or something. I was like, let's just make it simple. Let's call it the 4 pillars. And that's where I kind of adopted the idea of like the 4 pillars of life: faith, family, fitness, and finance. And that's kind of how we developed it.
Yep.
And we're going to go, through and briefly talk a little bit about each pillar. And kind of why it's important, or things that you can do, and and what it does in your life. And essentially kind of now too, I came up with well, listening for some other people as well too, adopted the attitude as well, as you can think about, right? If you do something at every single one of those pillars every single day, right, it's like eating a elephant one bite at a time. And same thing in your life is accomplishing and staying balanced one day at a time, one bite at a time. So it's how can I do one of these things every single day that's a part of my faith, my family, my fitness, and my finance. And if you do one of those things every single day, even if it's just small things, it's going to compound and help you stay balanced and keep a great life, and help you keep meditated and focused on the right path and right journey, and your compass that you should be following every single day.
Yep. A lot of them go with each other too, because you can, like, the first thing that came to mind is faith and finance. Those seem like they wouldn't go together, but the Bible talks a lot about finances and giving, and um, that would be one goal that we kind of came up with, is being able to help different families, give back to our church, stuff like that. So a lot of these go with each other. Family and fitness, we started including our kids in our workouts because um, just so they have a positive outlook, and we want our daughter to want to be strong, and obviously our son too, but he's 9 months old, so
Right.
they really go with each other. So as if you're doing this practice and making a list, it doesn't, like Ian said, like, you don't want to have 27 pillars necessarily, because that's just a lot to keep a hold of. But one thing we do is when we got away for a weekend a couple weeks ago before the new year, and as we were doing our calendar and coming up with goals, we wrote down faith, family, fitness, and finance, and we wanted to make sure that all of our goals fit within those 4 pillars, that our calendar really reflected those. And there was a few things that both of us ended up kind of giving up because, well, I'll call myself out for a second. I realized I was kind of looking for recognition in certain areas of my life, and it took a lot of self-reflection because I didn't want to admit that. But there were certain things that didn't fit in those pillars to make them stronger. So I had to step away from it and give that up, because I think a big thing is I was not going to regret giving those up, but I was going to regret not spending time with my elderly family, and not spending time in the gym and working on myself and stuff like that.
Yeah.
God.
Oh, and I think too, it all comes down to balance. And excuse me, it's never going to be perfect, because like, we're humans, and the only person that's perfect is Jesus. So we're gonna struggle with things, um, and stuff's gonna fall short. But it's just helping you anchor and strive for making the best you can and staying balanced, so you stay well rounded. And I think it helps you develop being more peaceful, more joyful, more courageous, and energetic, and just having a more successful life in that way. So we're talking about faith, though. Um, faith. So what do you think? What do you think faith means?
Okay, way to just hit me with that question. um, well, what's the Bible say? It's oh gosh, I just had a brain fart. Here, you answer that real quick. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
something for Ori.
1 second here. I can't remember I don't want to misquote the scripture wrong.
But basically, faith is, I mean, in a broad sense, it's you trust in the Lord with everything when things are going good, when things are going bad, and you don't waver in your faith. We just had a Bible study on our women's group, and we're going over the book Women of the Word. And in the first chapter, it talks about mind over heart. And again, with the self-reflection, I've been doing a lot of that lately, apparently. I grew up in church, and it was always important in my life, but the Bible wasn't. I thought the Bible was as important. I realized it wasn't to me, and I needed to fix that. And I think with faith, when you have your mind over heart, because feelings are not facts.
Mhm.
And there's been some low times in my life where I haven't leaned on the Bible and I've just prayed, and there's a time for that. And prayer works, obviously, and um not a time for that. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. But when you really truly know the word,
Was you
I
chewing on a
think
lemonade packet?
yeah, I
Oh,
just
sorry, I
needed
didn't mean to interrupt you.
way to call me out on the podcast too. He was chewing on a lemonade packet.
Okay.
It's okay. He can't break through. I'm watching him. But I think to make your faith stronger, you have to know who you have faith in. And you have to know who God is, because the Bible is a book about God. And I think, sorry, not to go way deeper than I think you anticipated for me to go on that, but
Hmm. No, that's good.
yeah.
And faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And that's
Yes.
Hebrews 11:1.
I knew it. I knew the verse, but I had it kind of jumbled up in my head.
Yeah. So the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, that ultimately comes from God himself
Yeah.
as well. Um, yeah.
Oh, can I say one more thing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that?
Go for it.
Because that book is really good. Again, it's Women of the Word, and it's men can read it too. That's
Mhm.
just the name of the book. I think it's beneficial for everybody. But when you think about dating and marrying somebody and your spouse, when you're dating, you think like, oh, I'm just going to use Ian for an example because that's easy. Like, I love when I was dating Ian and I didn't know him as a dad, I didn't know him as a business owner as much, and like all of this stuff. I loved the idea of him because I truly didn't like it takes time to know somebody.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same way with your faith too. Is the Bible is a book about God. So the more you know the Bible and the more you know God, the better you can have faith and love God.
Yeah, that's really good. Because that's what I was going to bring up was like, well, how, essentially, how can you build this foundation in your faith? And I think having that relationship with God, like you said, and the easiest way to do that is by what you said, but is essentially reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And some other, like you say, practical ways to nurture faith. I think, right, there's a bunch of ways you can do it as far as that goes, besides reading the Bible and knowing God, I think is probably the most important and close to the second, if not the importance as most important as well, too, is prayer as
Oh,
well.
100%. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
God gives us a way to communicate with him, or allows us to meditate and communicate with him. And that is how we can adapt and overcome a lot of things and bring our concerns to God. And I mean, the basic everyone hears the thing is, if you ask, you'll receive, kind of thing. I think that's really true. If your correct mindset and your actions reflect how you really feel and do on a daily basis, and you pray about that as well, then I think if you seek, you will find, and you ask and you will receive. But everything has to align in your life with that as well, too, I think, a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think they 100% go hand in hand, having faith and knowing the Bible and prayer, because when you're asking the Lord for something or you're praying, you're just constantly asking for something and you're not truly like leaning in, trying to understand God, trying to know God, trying to be closer to him. It's pretty selfish
Mm-hmm.
when you're not present in that relationship. And I'm not saying God says you're selfish. I don't want to put words in the like I'm not speaking from I don't know what I'm saying. There's not a Bible verse that says you're selfish because you think this way or you pray and you don't try to understand me, but the Bible cautions about it
Mm-hmm.
multiple times about doing that.
Absolutely. Do you have any stories you want to share about using faith to overcome an obstacle or challenge in your life?
Yeah. How about the first year of Eden's life?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that the other day. I went through a lot of postpartum depression. It was a very busy time for the gym.
Yeah.
Um, and quite honestly, our marriage was kind of on the rocks. Eden was the first 2 years of her life. She just didn't sleep. We would let her cry, and she would throw up in the first 5 minutes. We would let her cry. It was just a really hard time, and there were circumstances that came up in that year that really trialed us and our every four pillar that came that
Right.
um but through faith and knowing that had to we had to work through it. It wasn't we couldn't give up on any four of those pillars. Specifically faith, though, I think it was huge for our growth, and I think we grew stronger,
Hmm.
and it prepared us for a lot of things that we've been through since.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
although it's hard. I told Ian it's hard for me to think about the first year of Eden's life, not because of anything with Eden. I love her; she's a blessing. Nothing to do with Eden other than that she didn't sleep. Um,
Yeah, which is
it
very
was
difficult.
yeah, it was a difficult time, and I it brought us closer to God though because
Hmm.
we had to lean on God.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was really good.
yeah. Thanks.
Um, so what which I know we got really into the faith pillar, but I think it's honestly that's the reason I put it first is
Yes.
I think the faith pillar is the most important. Your relationship with God's most important, and I think for miracle purposes and whatever, I think if all the other pillars crumble, um, maybe even the other pillars crumble because of not even your control. Ultimately, the miracle could happen where God can hold everything together.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and because if you
Yes.
even think of if you haven't read the Bible, I highly or I say this book in the Bible, Job is one of my favorite books in the Bible. And if it
Mhm.
really honestly, if you think about it, right, even if you try to maintain and do your other four pillars, right, your other three pillars, and they fall apart, like what happened to Job. Job didn't intentionally let his family, you could say his family, fitness, and finance pillar fall.
Right.
Essentially, God gave the devil, power
To
because
test
to
him.
test him,
Yeah.
and Satan took away all of his pillars without basically out
Mhm.
of Job's control.
Yeah.
But you saw what happened is the faith pillar essentially held him through everything, and that's where
Yes.
if unintentionally those other pillars collapse, and it could not even be your fault, right? It could be completely out of your control,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
that faith pillar can hold you through just like it did for Job.
100%. I like that you brought that up because it's so true. That's why we always put that first, and there's no comparison the other pillars to faith. It's 100% the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the family pillar here.
Yeah.
The importance of the family pillar. What do you think the importance of the family pillar is? Or like, what is the family pillar?
I think the family pillar is any kind of relationship. I think in a Christian faith, the marital relationship is, well, one is God,
Hmm.
two is your marriage, and then under that is your children, your family, um, your relationships with others, the
Yeah.
church, like having
Well,
fellowship.
yeah, and really, and actually, as we go through these, you'll probably see that, right? All the pillars essentially point towards God. Essentially, at the end of the
Yes.
day, because even when you talk
Hmm.
about family, God tells us. I think He gives us a clear description of God's number one, your
Hmm.
relationship with God, then your spouse
Yep.
that you bind here on earth with your spouse, and leave your parents, and then ultimately your children, and
Hmm.
then the rest, like your parents, friends, and all that stuff as well.
Yeah. I think making disciples falls in faith and family as
Hmm.
well because you're nurturing those relationships And I think when you're talking about the family pillar, essentially it boils down to nurturing relationships that point to God.
Absolutely. What are some ways you can navigate the family pillar and prioritize it and balance it?
Well, I mean, one example I brought up earlier is there were some things that I was doing for my own recognition. Um, just I was making myself very busy, and I was having to find babysitters for the kids more. Um, our our grandparents are they're getting older and
Yeah.
not being able to be as mobile, and so I had to step away from some of those things to really focus on my family. And like I said earlier, those things, they're great. What I was doing, it wasn't bad by any means, and I still value it, but there is never going to be a time I'm going to regret going to see a grandparent when they're old and helping them.
Oh, that's debatable.
Well, hopefully they don't listen to this podcast.
I'm just kidding.
No,
I think you're
you're
correct.
terrible. But like I'm home. I'm gonna be homeschooling Eden and um really valuing that time that I have with them. We were just stuck in the house for 2 days because of snow and coldness, and right now it's hard to imagine homeschooling, but we're gonna get through it. And um but also making time for your spouse. And when you have kids, it gets harder, but we're lucky we have a really good support system around us. And Ian and I will go out once a week, even if it's just for an hour, or we'll spend time at home, just us. And being able to, part of the podcast is just us being able to connect because
Mhm.
life is busy and crazy.
Yeah, I think having those those non-negotiables or your rules or whatever you want to call it in your life, which I know you can get, which I had to go through a phase of where I got kind of too obsessed with this, and I had like a checklist of people I was going to like essentially try to visit or my grandparents and stuff, like in a
Yeah.
checklist. I think you can get too obsessed with it, but just keeping it simple and just having kind of just like a mental list of like I'm going to do something for my family pillar like once a day or once a week and once a month kind of thing. And I kind of intentionally think about, okay, like obviously it's not a ghost. My wife and I have to have a date night once a week and spend time together once a week. I got to do something for my kids, once a week or every day kind of thing that is giving back to them. And I kind of try to think of roughly, it's not perfect, but once a week, I want to pick somebody to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that when I say connect with, it's not even my family. It could be friends or whoever. And like for an example, like tomorrow I'm going to have lunch with a friend from a church from church I've been working out with. So we're going to go have lunch tomorrow. So just getting to connect with people, once a week. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like it's like once a week, and if you can't do once a week, do once every 2 weeks or once a month.
Yeah.
Just have that. Having something is, I think, very important.
I think slowing down is huge for the family pillar
Yeah.
because uh, one little example is Eden likes to make eggs with me in the morning, and there's sometimes because it takes 3 times as long to make eggs with
Right.
her, but I am like, why am I in a rush? What am I in a rush for?
Right.
If we're 15 minutes late to something because she got to make eggs, and that might have been the highlight of her day because she got to do something with mom, we're going to be 15 minutes late. And that was huge for me because I hate being late to things.
Yeah.
But slowing down is huge for the family pillar. I mean, it's huge for all 4 pillars, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one way to nurture relationships too, is to truly take time for people and again nurture those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think about the fitness pillar? Why does the fitness pillar matter?
Why doesn't it matter would be a more
Oh,
accurate
yeah,
question.
I would say there's a lot there, right? Because
Yeah.
Doesn't help you to be the richest man in the graveyard.
Right.
Yeah, if you die in your 60 because you're 100 pounds overweight and you have a massive heart attack, it doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about the fitness pillar, it's not about vanity. It is about aging gracefully and being able to have nothing that holds us back physically.
Mm-hmm.
It's not vanity.
Yeah,
Because I think sometimes that can be, as soon as you say diet or fitness, it can be taken as vanity. And that is not our goal with the fitness pillar.
yeah. I honestly hate fitness influencers. I know everybody's on
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook, right? The fitness influencer thing is just such, I think, actually detrimental to our society.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is it's good to you follow these people, maybe you get workout ideas or healthy habits. There's a lot of good things that come from it, but it gives such a false perspective of what to expect out of fitness, right?
Absolutely.
And the reason I'm saying that as well too is I would put probably my life savings on it that if everybody if they were honest, 99% of those influencers are taking anabolic steroids, drugs, or some sort of um, and performance enhancing substance to reduce body fat and change their image.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
you're not telling me that some of these women and guys on there, like, no, they're juiced to the gills with some sort of drug. I mean,
Just
I'm
made me
sorry, it
think
is
of
what
the
it
Liver
is.
King, and like when it came out that he was taking steroids, everybody's like,
Yeah,
what?
there were actually
It's like,
people.
look at him.
There was actually people that were like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize he was taking steroids." Like, really?
Just take a look at him.
I mean, and it goes, but like with everybody, it's not
Yeah.
him because
Oh no, I know.
but
Yeah.
because like I actually I eat carnivore or whatever, and it works really well for me. But I mean, there's a false pretense of what a healthy fit looking male and female should be, right? And you're essentially looking
Yes.
at the top 0.1% of people probably in the world on Instagram that are just like jacked to their minds, and they're
Yeah.
probably taking substances to help that.
Right.
And I'm not taking anything away from them because even if you take a crap load of drugs, if you don't work out hard and eat correctly, you're not going to get just jacked out of your mind. Like, you still have to work hard, and
Yeah.
I think that's really important. It's not a magical pill,
Right.
but you're not going to look the same as that Instagram influencer looks, even no matter how hard you work. That's
Right.
the false pretense to it.
I think too, just from speaking from the women's side, especially like postpartum, it can be really intimidating to look at those fitness influencers who gave birth a month ago and they have 6 packs of abs.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah. And like you'll see a lot of people, like we have a lot of people in the gym that I've even talked to that, like, we have an in-body scanner, and they might do an in-body scan, and they're a 40-year-old male, and they have like 15% body fat, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell they work out, right? And like they look good,
Yeah.
but they're like, oh man, I don't look like flipping Arnold Schwarzenegger, like,
Yeah.
what I'm
Right.
saying? There's such a false pretense of like what you should look like to be considered like fit, right?
Yeah.
When it's actually like there's a lot of people that are in really good shape or
Right.
really healthy, and they have they just have a bad concept of, like, our society puts a bad concept of what it means to be quotations fit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more people in really good shape than what they realize, and healthy.
For sure.
And I think it makes your goal harder as well too.
Absolutely. And when speaking of that, I had one thing I did that I was challenged to do is unfollow a lot of those fitness influencers. There's some that are they're fine, and I think they are probably more natural and they're more encouraging, and
And there are some people that they're blessed with good genetics.
Oh, for
That
sure.
that is still a factor. I'm not saying all of them are juiced to the gills,
Right.
but like
You can usually tell though.
yeah. Then the ones that are really crazy are the ones that have good genetics, and then they're juiced to the gills on top of that. And you're like, what the crap is this? And it's like,
Right.
well, they got both of those things going for them.
Yeah. I think with fitness too, it's important that your kids see you working towards fitness goals and striving to be your best. There's Ori agrees. Again, with the slowing down, when we work out with Eden, yeah, it takes longer because we have to teach her correct form and we have to do all of this stuff.
Right.
But she wants to be strong, and she has been learning more about like where food comes from and stuff like that. Because one thing I will not do is teach her about calories, because I think that's really focused on with women way too much.
I think even weight sometimes.
Oh
I think
yeah,
sometimes, which I even get on to you about it. It's looking at
I
body. It's
know.
looking at body fat
Yeah,
percentages and muscle mass.
for
Now, I
sure.
mean, there are times to look at weight, right? And sometimes like, okay,
Right.
this is way too high, right,
Yeah.
for you to be healthy. But there's a good chance a lot of times a body fat percentage and skeletal muscle mass can give you a good judge on a
Yeah.
landmark to help you maybe a better healthy outlook on that.
Right. And the battles that you don't face, your kids will have to face. So if you're not going to face the battle of eating foods that nourish your body and living a healthy life, your kids are going to have to deal with that
Mm-hmm.
battle by themselves.
Right.
So instead, do it as a family. Fight that
Right.
battle as a family, because your kids, if they grow up having the right view about food nourishing your body, and working out can be fun and it can be challenging, but it's not bad and it's not scary.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids aren't going to have to deal with those
Right.
they're not going to have to fight that battle because it's going to be natural to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just to how can you practically implement this is just keep it simple. You don't have to. There's so many ways you can find a workout program or something.
Absolutely.
Find a sport, an activity you like to do, and
Hmm.
that can be your cardio, right? I I think you should do something basically every single day to create that habit. But it doesn't have to be insane, right? It could be just 20, like your off days. It could be 20 minutes of walking on the treadmill, or it could be playing basketball, or it could be doing whatever whatever
Yeah.
that thing is. And there's so
Yeah.
many things you can do, but I think it's sometimes right. You're going to have to do stuff maybe you don't like. Like for an example,
Right.
like it's pretty scientifically proven that lifting weights creates the most muscle mass while burning the most body fat and helps
Hmm.
you change your figure and be healthy, right? And
Yeah.
not everybody probably likes lifting weights, right? But you still should do it, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
And there's not really excuses anymore to like not have a workout program, because even if you
No.
have no idea what you're doing, there's so many ways to find it.
Pinterest is
Yeah,
free.
Pinterest. There's so many free ways to find it as well too.
Yes.
And honestly, I think what the the most important thing to do is to hire a trainer, right?
Yeah.
I know it can be expensive or it can be hard, but you have a trainer. They hold you accountable. You don't have to think about anything. They're going to come in. They tell you exactly what to do. They tell you what exactly to do on your off days, and they even give you nutrition guidance or find a way to, hey, here's a nutrition plan that maybe you and your family can follow. And it takes all the friction out of that process, especially if you don't know what you're doing. It's worth the investment. Me personally, I think.
I work with a trainer simply for the fact that I didn't want to have to make any decisions before I had to work out. And I come, I work out with my trainer. It's half an hour. Eden usually does it too. But I don't have to think about what I'm going to do next. I just do the workout. And sometimes she has to hold Ori for me. And that's huge. It's not so much that I don't know what I'm doing. It's that I don't have to think about it, which is
Right,
great. And I don't have any excuse because I don't have to think about it.
right,
And somebody is expecting me to be there, so I'm going to be there because I don't want to mess up someone else's day.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's just keep it simple. Eat nutritious food. Cut out bad sugar,
Yep.
bad things in your food, and do something to make yourself move every single day. And you'll be successful at it.
For sure.
Just in the simple terms.
Yeah.
And excuse me, the last pillar we have here is finance. So, what do you think about finance?
It's important
It is
to pay bills.
right. It is very important.
Budgeting, I don't know. I worked at a bank as a teller, so I learned a lot what not to do just from kind of watching other people's spending habits. Both my parents worked at banks. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of knew more of the budget side. Ian's really good at the investment side, so I think it worked well, even though we still like especially early on, had some struggles because there were things that I didn't necessarily think were liabilities that were, and maybe Ian wanted to invest and I didn't quite understand it. But I think ignorance is not bliss when it comes to
No,
finance.
absolutely not.
And I was very ignorant on a lot of things when we got married. I'm not saying I went out and bought a bunch of useless stuff, but like I remember Ian and I going to a financial advisor, and I didn't understand. Like I felt like they were speaking alien talk. I did not understand half of what they were saying. And we got in the car, and Ian's like, "How do you think that went?" I'm like, I have no idea, but I trust you."
Yeah, yeah. No, I did a lot of study on finances because it's very important, and I think everybody should have a financial advisor or someone, not even to control your investments, because honestly, no one cares about your money as much as you do, right?
Right.
And when I say that is, and even in investing, yeah, it's easy to get a financial investor or a financial advisor and let them handle all your investing, but they still don't care as much about your money as you do. So
Right.
you can still do your own research and find the most beneficial. And it's not even really that hard if you just keep it simple with some of the stocks and things that you can invest in that you can keep more of your money and that pay less fees and whatever. If you do some basic research, you just do it yourself. It doesn't have to
Yep.
be fancy. But regardless, I still have a financial investor, and I still do. I'm not a big fan of mutual funds are okay or whatever. I'm not going to get into all that or whatever. But I still go through their portfolio and do like a small amount or whatever. And it'll be just a bonus account that we have. But I still have access to a financial advisor that I'll call or I'll email him sometimes. But hey, what do you think about blah 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 blah, and just to
Right.
bounce ideas off of. You need somebody. You need to develop that team in your life. Same thing with my CPA. I have a CPA. I have a financial advisor that I hired, and I can bounce financial ideas off them and ask them their opinion on something and this, and it's very beneficial to help you be successful.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, though, to create the ultimate success in your life and keeping as simple as possible, because most people probably aren't even doing this, is one, hire a financial advisor.
Right.
Two, make a budget. The budget's for now, and then invest in something for later. So you got to do
Yep.
now and you got to do later, right? Budget, you got to have a budget and follow the budget, and then have an investment plan, whatever that is, and that could include your financial advisor.
Yeah.
Um, Even just, I mean, you can Google this or look it up. Maybe it's something as simple as, I'm doing. I'm not going to tell you something I'm not doing, and want to advise somebody else. SP 500. SP 500 has a great growth rate, right? Put 10%, 15% of your paycheck in an SP 500 EFT, whatever part of the SP 500
Mm-hmm.
for the next 30 years. You'll probably be a multimillionaire and you retire in 30 years, right? And you can Google that, look it up, look at how it's returned over the years. Probably going to happen again in 30 more years,
Yep.
right? So I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated, but
Right.
you need to have something for the future and to grow your money.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting money in a savings account is not going to save you, right?
Right.
Statistically, the inflation is going to eat at your savings account. You're actually going to lose money by keeping it in a savings account. So you need to
Yeah.
have a budget and you need to invest for the future. If you do those
Right.
two things, your finances will take care of itself and take care of you and your family. And that's not. I don't feel like it's super super complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, I think just one really basic piece of advice is live within your means. Don't go buy the latest and greatest vehicle when yours runs fine, and
Right.
stuff like that too. I think is pretty important. I mean, Ian and I want to build a house, and right now we're living in a pretty small kind of apartment kind of thing that we
Barndominium.
barndominium.
Barndominium
Well,
sounds cool.
okay, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like we live upstairs. It's like an apartment.
Right.
Um, and be grateful for what you have too. I think that's huge when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to finances. Is you're you're not chasing something. You're working hard. You're investing. Like these are basic things, but also just being grateful for what you have. And we have a pretty old car that doesn't do great in the snow, but I kept catching myself complaining about it. But I have a car that gets me to town and back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, it's more like I drive the
Okay.
car, and I let Kylie take the truck now.
Yes, which I'm very thankful for because I would hate to drag the kids up and down a hill, but um I don't know where I was going. Oh, just yeah, just be thankful for things because um Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book that really helped me understand quite a bit about investing and finances.
Basic financial literacy.
Yes, because like I said, ignorance is not bliss when it comes to this. And I have an amazing husband who I completely trust with our finances. And I'm very blessed by that. I I completely understand that not everybody is in those shoes. So I really encourage everybody. That's an Rich Dad Poor Dad's an easy
It's an
read.
easy read or
It's
listen
on
to.
Audible. It's probably on Spotify. If you have Spotify Premium, you can probably listen to it for free. I don't know. I haven't checked that out. But just start there. That's where I really kind of opened my eyes to how little I truly knew.
Sorry.
It's a piece of
Oh, okay.
food.
I didn't know what that was.
It's the crunchy. That's the giant mess that you have on your couch now.
Wonderful.
I'll vacuum it. It's fine.
But yeah, I was going to actually suggest Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I think it basically just learn basic, financial literacy.
Yep.
How to do a budget, how to balance a checkbook, and invest for the future.
I'm gonna look up a book real quick that I'm gonna suggest for the family part.
Yeah. And because one thing as well too, where we'll go and while she's looking that up to keep in consideration, I really think that houses, how like your personal house is turned into more of a liability than it does an asset, in my opinion, because you're spending money to really not make any money.
Yep.
So there's some things like that to keep in mind, and that's Rich Dad Poor Dad gets into more of that as well too.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna give a book suggestion for each thing. Are you ready?
For each what?
Each pillar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So faith, I'm gonna give one. You can give one if you want. Women of the Word. I can't remember the author, but it's Women of the Word. It's probably the first thing that comes up on Google. Men and women should read it. I think it's a really good book. Obviously, the Bible is number one for faith. Do you have any for faith, Ian?
You go through yours, and I'll tell you.
Okay. Family is Take Back Your Family. Oh, I was hoping to get Take Back Your Family from the Tyrants of Burnout, Busyness, Individualism, and the Nuclear Idea by Jefferson Bethke. Again, super duper easy read. It really made me rethink a lot about like what I wanted my family to look like and our goals and everything. I don't really have one on fitness, to be honest. And then finance would be Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn.
I'm actually going to keep it pretty simple. I've read a lot of books, so it's hard. I even forget the ones I've read sometimes. I'm actually going to keep this pretty simple. Obviously, I think you should read the Bible. It's probably the most important. But I'm going to give you two book recommendations. I would say The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Yeah. And those cover all of them.
Yep.
Yeah, in one book, you could boom, knock them all out.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Thank you for listening to the 4 Pillar Podcast. Please give us a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Share it to somebody you think needs to hear this. And just thank you for making all things possible and listening to us. And let us know if there's anything we do to help you.